Hey, what's good, guys? So, exciting day. We have Sarah with us, who I've actually known Sarah for 15, 16 years, maybe, as Facebook friends and stuff like that. And we'd known each other through the Lyme community, just casually been friends as I did stuff in like the nonprofit realm, had shared several conversations over the years. She was from South Carolina, I was from, but she was more upstate. And just kind of, we're going to talk about her story, and just some of the things that she's done to shift her life and how she's feeling now. But it's ironic because we watch how life kind of moves and unfolds. And if you were to ask Sarah and some of these people in the Lyme community that know me, if they were to say, "Hey, look, he's doing X, Y, and Z now without medication or treatment or anything like that," they'd be like, "No, there's no way." Sarah and I had several conversations back in the day just about being so sick and kind of commiserating in that, like as many people do in the chronic illness community and the Lyme community. So we're excited to have you, Sarah. We're excited to hear your story.
Yeah, thank
I know
you.
Joe knows
Thanks
you
for
as
having
well.
me. Thanks
You've been in the boot camp
yeah,
since day one, literally. So
since
would
day
love to
one,
kind of flip it.
Sarah's the OG
Yeah,
homie.
she's one of the OGs in the class, and would love to just kind of hear your story about where you were at when you came into the boot camp, a little bit of your story and your Lyme journey. I know you had a lot of other things that went on, where you're at now and what's kind of shifted and just how life is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so when Josh posted on Facebook about the boot camp, it came at a really good time for me because I had had a really big downfall and I had ended up in the hospital. And I get confused about what happened in the hospital, but I think I had had something like a stroke episode. They didn't call it a stroke, but I had gotten really, really weak.
Mm.
And still to this day, the left side of my face and the left side of my arm is weaker. Um, and I saw that, and Josh said, "Well, what are you trying to overcome? What are you trying to make a shift with?" And I was like, "I'm just trying to get back to where I was."
Yeah,
Because at that point, I thought that I was functional and just happy because I could go to the grocery store, I could go shopping, but then I would come home and rest the rest of the day. It was
yeah.
like two outings max a week.
Well,
But I was okay with that because from where I started, that was a huge shift.
Right.
yeah,
So to go back from where I started, I got sick, and I say sick because started with the flu symptoms and stuff like that. Everybody knows. And I got sick when I was 8, and then I
mm,
started to have trouble walking. And that was a huge confusion for everybody. They
yeah,
thought it was arthritis, and they really just kept scratching their heads, and it just got worse. I was tested for Lyme disease. I was bitten by a tick, but all the tests were negative.
yeah.
Well, we all know how that goes. Fast forward six to when I was 16, I got diagnosed with Lyme disease based on my symptoms.
Mm,
And at that point, I was not doing well.
yeah,
Wasn't really going to school, was doing school mostly from home. And I think, along with most other people, when you get the diagnosis, for being in that state of confusion and of not knowing for so long, it's like a sense of a relief. You're like, it has a name, it can be fixed.
yeah.
That's great.
Right.
That's what
And
we all have. Yeah, it's like finally when we get that diagnosis, we almost feel like, oh yes, I know now. I'm gonna get better. But yeah, sorry.
and that's when I went to Facebook and looked for a community type group, and I think there was two Lyme disease groups at that time. And
Yeah.
I joined the one with the more people, and that's where I met Josh. And
Mhm.
along with Josh, I had kind of created a group of girls my age that we became friends. We met in person multiple times. Now, we
Mm,
didn't do anything but sit on the couch with sunglasses on in the dark when we met, but it was nice to have that sense of
yeah.
community.
Was one of them Jennifer,
And
the one that lives in North Carolina?
one of them was Jennifer, and then there was a couple girls that were more my age, and that just, again, it was that sense of community of
Right.
they get it, to a little degree. And, you know, through that process, I found a Lyme doctor. I actually saw a Lyme doctor in New York
Yeah.
for a couple years, went through doing all the really intense IV antibiotics, did those for years.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know the Herx reaction. I hurts so bad and for so long. I really didn't see any progress for
Same.
about 2 years.
Yeah.
And when I was 17, 18, I was laying in bed with the PICC line, doing fluids. My stomach had pretty much gone to garbage, couldn't really eat anything.
Yeah.
And then when I was 17, I got so many stomach issues, I just couldn't eat.
Wow.
It would
Yeah.
just either come up or it felt like there was burning gasoline in my stomach.
Yeah.
And I ended up being hospitalized because I got so malnourished and I
Yeah.
almost died. I mean, it was grim. But even after that, you know, I came home still doing antibiotics, being tube fed through a feeding tube and all
Yeah.
that. And I think it was when I was 19, it was really dark because I was laying in bed 24/7.
Yeah.
I took a
Yeah.
shower once a week. And
Yeah.
that's gross to think about now, but that
No,
was
but
the reality.
that's the norm. And I want to pause you
That's
for
how.
1 second, Sarah, because this is the part that I think that if people get this sort of message, I've talked to, and I know Joe has, so many people that have fallen down. And guys, this isn't medical advice, just a lot the LLMD route, and they've done all these antibiotics and they pump themselves full of antibiotics. And we all three of us have had PICC lines. The showering once a week,
Yeah.
I've been there. The living in bed, I've
I've
lived.
been there
I've
too.
been
I've been there too.
yeah, Joe has. So like
Yeah.
service, like I used to advocate for long-term antibiotic use without even that. I don't know one person that's consistently stayed healthy by using long-term antibiotics. I've never seen peer-reviewed studies for it, and it is
Yeah.
extremely dangerous. I feel like for me,
Yeah.
it set me back years when I used long-term
Yeah.
antibiotics. Joe, I
Same.
don't know if you have
Same.
any insight on that. I know it's a little side part, but I feel so
Yeah.
strongly about it. I just we
Yep.
pay out of pocket because these doctors don't take insurance, and we do these long-term antibiotics. And I don't know anybody that's really seen a shift and be like, I got my life back. I just spent, $8 grand on a PICC line and now I'm healthy again. No, it put me through hell, man.
Yeah, it did the same thing to me. It caused tons of GI issues, to the point where I had terrible candida, gut health issues, dysbiosis in my gut, and then had issues with eating stuff. The antibiotics alone never really helped me. I did take some antibiotics while I was doing a lot of what we do now, and it seemed to mitigate that stuff, but it wasn't a daily thing. I never really pumped myself full of them. It was like I would take them here and there, maybe like a couple weeks, and then not, or kind of pulse them back. This was back when I got better the first time, and then I stopped them completely, and then I did like some herbs and supplements, and then I even
Sounds
stopped
critical.
those
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, yeah,
I
but
definitely think they have their time and their place.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think doing them for years and years on end is the answer.
Yeah,
But along with Lyme disease, I had a lot of other health issues
yeah,
going on that they thought the antibiotics would help as well. And again, I think they have their time and
yeah,
their
they do.
Yeah.
place for what they're helping. For Lyme
Right.
disease,
Especially if it's acute. Like if you get that infection
Yeah.
pretty quickly, like
You
yeah,
need antibiotics. Antibiotics knock it out. Like if there's cardiac into like myocarditis or something. Obviously, those are situations. But I think where I've seen people take antibiotics 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, like they're living off a
years,
PICC line.
multiple
Like
years, 10 years. People,
that was the
it's
worst. That
crazy.
was the worst 2 years of my whole journey is when I was on long-term antibiotics, and I just blindly
Yeah,
trusted the
because
doctor without any kind of research.
you have such hope and faith that it's
yeah,
working, and they're like, but you're going to hurt, so you're going to feel worse. So you continue to endure. And
yeah,
then you continue to endure and it keeps going and going. And you're like, when is the reprieve?
yeah,
When
exactly.
when am I going to float up and be able to take a breath of air?
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it, it got there for me maybe one or two times, but it wasn't consistent.
yeah,
It wasn't long term. It wasn't a cure by any
yeah.
means. So
Same.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah,
you, but this so kind of where like when we met, like, and I know that you I forget the condition, but you ended up having brain surgery, and I do know that you're in a wheelchair, but I think that you went from if I'm correct, like you were living with your parents, you're now, I know that you still have your struggles, but you're a lot more independent. So I'd like to kind of hear like when you came in, what shifted and what you specifically did that really changed your life, that brought you joy, that made you feel like you had a more abundant life and like you were living again, like felt a little healthier than you were.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I was 19, I was really in that deep, dark spot. And I knew I wasn't going to commit suicide. That's just not something my mind ever went to. And I knew that I was dying. I could
Yeah.
feel it. I was being tube fed, getting antibiotics. All my fluids were pretty much coming from an IV. And being in that dark hole of a room, yeah, it was somehow my sanctuary, but it was also my prison.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I
feel that.
got to the point to where I wasn't sleeping, and I would just pray, and I would be like, I would rather try to live
Mm.
and have memories of experiences, even if it sucked for me and I was in pain the whole time, than just exist in this hole and
Yeah.
have nothing except darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I decided to move out on my own. Was it a quick process? No. Did people agree with that and think it was the right choice? No. But did I do it anyway? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the right choice? 100%.
Yeah.
Because when I moved out on my own, I had to get up and get water. I had to get up and go to the bathroom.
Mm.
Things that were done for me, which no shame or regret to the people that helped me because I needed help at times.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
all did. Um, but it was that point where I'm like, I have to try to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And it was very small steps. And I started eating rice and water. And I ate rice products for probably 5 years, and that's all I ate. That and homemade applesauce.
Wow.
And I slowly just built up and
Yeah.
built up strength. And it got to where I was 21. When I was 18, they figured out that I had a condition called Chiari, which
Yeah.
is supposedly from birth, but it's an issue with your brainstem. And it explained a lot of my symptoms that also fall under the umbrella of Lyme disease, because I think every symptom in the world can almost fall under Lyme
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah.
So I had brain surgery, and it helped. Do I still have headaches? Yes. Do I still have migraines? Yes. Do I still have X, Y, and Z pains? Yes. But do I know that it prevented it from getting worse? Yes.
Mm.
And then when I came, that took a while to get back up from.
Yeah.
And then when I was 24, I was I was going out, I was doing some things on my own, but I was like, this isn't enough anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going to be my next step? And that's when I went back to school.
Yeah.
And this school, you had to go and live in a dorm 5 days a week and then come back on the weekends. And from being at home, living in an apartment by myself that I only left maybe once a week, if that, that was so scary. I
Yeah.
was terrified. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I know there's going to be a lot of physical pain involved, but I did it and I succeeded. And that's probably some of the best memories I
Yeah.
have, because I don't have college memories. I don't really have a whole lot of high school
Yeah.
memories. So having that was huge for me. It was almost like starting to live.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but with being sick, time is such a weird thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's like I see people my age and I'm like, but I feel 14 sometimes
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
still feel
because
like
I
I'm in my
didn't get to
20s in my head.
yeah, I didn't get to experience being a teenager or, a young 21-year-old. I didn't do any of that stuff. Not that I really care to go out to a bar and drink now, because that's not my
Yeah.
thing.
Exactly.
But those experiences that help build you, I didn't really have.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to kind of touch on something you were kind of going through here. I know you were still struggling at that period, and I think we get a lot of people in our classes. that struggle, but they try some things or whatever, or maybe some people stay agoraphobic. I think the one thing that Sarah always seemed to have is like the power of the human spirit,
Yeah.
the will and the want to live and to try things even when it was uncomfortable. And I think that's like an awesome sort of trait to have, because a lot of
Thank
people can
you.
fall into, and I know you did times previously, where they just stay down. They just stay down, and they're just not. They're not willing to try. So I just want to kind of illustrate that too, because I think that's a big part of you know your your recovery and your some of your healing is just the will to live and to try
And
things.
that's one of the reasons I
Yeah,
do so much now, because I have
yeah,
so many memories
yeah,
from being young, like 8, 9, 10, 11, where I would be crying because my parents would be going to my grandmother's house for
yeah,
a family birthday party. And I started a blog when I was in my teens, and I wrote a blog post about it, and it was titled "Should I Stay or Should I Go?"
yeah,
about the song. And that was always such a struggle for me.
yeah,
Should I stay and rest
yeah,
and not have more physical pain, or should I go and then feel worse?
yeah,
That's the mentality I stayed stuck in, and it was so
Yeah.
hard for me.
yeah,
That's still hard for me at times.
yeah,
I mean, last year I had a really big struggle to where I was going to do something, and my spiral started with that
yeah.
same scenario. So it's not something that magically goes away.
No, yeah,
It's always going to be something that you face, and you just have to
yeah,
choose to go through the fear. Do you
yeah,
have to do it every single time? No, because sometimes it's going to be in your best interest to not do it.
yeah.
You really just have to learn your body
Hmm.
and learn your mindset and know when to push yourself and when to be like, yeah, I can sit this one out.
Yeah,
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 for sure.
exactly.
So I'm kind of curious. So we obviously you came into the boot camp about 2.5 years ago. Just curious how it helped kind of shift things for you. Like, what were some things that helped you,
Yeah,
and was it a dynamic shift? Like, what in your life changed, and do you now enjoy life? I know that you said you generally would go to like the grocery store once or twice a week, and you're there, but like, I'm just curious, like, what
yeah,
kind of shifted for you, and what you did to actually, what helped you facilitate that shift?
So
yeah,
when I went into the start of the boot camp, number one, I believed in you guys and what you were doing. And that's part of why I helped.
yeah,
And then when I went into it full force,
yeah, yeah.
because I
Yeah.
said, it's probably not going to work if I don't fully commit, if I
Hmm.
don't fully put faith into it.
Hmm.
And from day one, I did the whole routine. Did I do it? Did I do 30 minutes of yoga? No, it was probably 2 minutes. But did
Yeah,
I
it's
do
fine.
everything twice a day?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I remember the first day, because when I started, I am in a wheelchair and my numbness was worse. And it had gone up to here. I could
mm,
move my arms, but they felt like they weighed 15 pounds.
Right.
And for the walk, I had decided that I was going to go down my driveway into the stop sign and back.
Yeah.
And my driveway is kind of steep. I mean, even on a good day when I'm at the state that I am now, it's still kind of hard to push up.
yeah,
And my family was out of town, and I was so scared that I would get to the bottom and not be able to make it to the top.
mm,
And I said, well, if I end up at the bottom stuck, I have one neighbor that I know would help me. And I said,
yeah.
we'll see. And I did it. And it probably literally took me 12 minutes to get all the way up, but I
Wow.
did it. And that boost of being like, oh my gosh, I conquered that.
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
propelled me to be like, okay, I see what this is going to do. And
hmm,
I stayed with it I was so consistent for probably almost a year.
yeah,
And I lost 50 pounds in that process. My diet, I got super clean with it. And one of the things that was so big to me was the vision boards
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I hadn't lived a lot. There were so many experiences and still today that I hadn't done that I want to do. And I started making vision boards
Yeah.
and that propelled me. It was like, okay, I may not be able to do this today, but I can work towards it.
Yeah.
And I started going out. I was probably pushing a little too hard in the beginning, but I started going out probably 3 times a week.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I started, and then after that, I started going multiple places a day, like two,
Hmm.
3 places a day. And
Yep.
then I started going to the gym,
Yep.
and then it just kept going, and
Mhm.
then it got to the point to where I was like, what really brings me joy?
Yeah.
And that's a hard question. I mean, again, when you haven't really lived and you haven't really had hobbies since you were 6 or 7 years old,
Yeah.
you're like, does that really still bring me joy?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, archery used to bring me joy when I was a little kid. And I was like, why not try that again? And I did. And I still do it today. I volunteer doing
Mhm.
archery and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But now that I'm at that point to where I'm like, okay, this brings me joy and I'm able to help bring joy to other people through that, it's kind of like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at now. It's like, got to go back to the vision board, got to
Yeah.
see what I haven't crossed off.
Right.
And,
Yep.
you know, even getting that accomplishment, which is huge. And I take the time to be proud of myself because I think a lot of people
That's
don't.
huge. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just like, well, I'm not where I used to be,
Right.
or
Yeah.
I'm not where I want to be. You cannot look at that. You have to be
No.
like, look where I am right now.
Exactly.
So I
So I
guess
want to bring up you
so.
talked
Sorry.
about
Go
the
ahead, Joe.
vision boards. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the vision board stuff too because I think our last guest on here as well, and there's a common theme around the people that kind of progress, heal, get better. And something that we have in our class, me and Josh, we encourage people to like make vision boards, and also we have like our visualization writing exercises, and like
Right.
we often and routinely revisit goals and things like that. And I think this is such an important part of healing that often goes overlooked in like the neural brain retraining, nervous system work. It's like everyone's so focused on the what tools and tactics did you do to heal? Did you do a top down approach, a bottom up approach? Did you do somatics? And it's like some of the stuff is like let's figure out what brings you joy in life. Sometimes it's going back to when you were a kid. Start finding joy in the midst of the struggle and the journey, and then build on that slowly over time. And I think that this is an important thing to talk about. That was probably I'm curious, Sarah, like how would you quantify that in terms of like the healing work? Like we have our healing routine, and we have the different things that we have people do on a daily basis, but like just finding that some of those outlets and some of those things that brought you joy, like where do you think that was a big part of the you kind of sort of taking that next step?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think it really boils down to if you don't have faith or believe that you
Yeah.
can get better, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. Sure.
And once you have that, it's like you can build on that in so many avenues. And even if you don't know what brings you joy, I just started doing stuff. Before I found
That's it.
archery, I would go out and listen to live music. I would, I
Yeah.
would just do stuff. I went to a painting
Yeah.
class, which I love painting, but it's not something that really that's like a relaxing thing. It's not something that
Yeah.
really sparks me and that I can go out and do. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to try and fail. You're not going to
Yeah.
love everything. Nobody
Yep.
loves going to the gym, but some people do.
Some people. Yeah.
Everything you try is not going to work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think having that, and once you find something that brings you joy, it's like, oh, I get to go do this today.
Yeah.
You find excitement and a want to get up and live, a
Mm.
want something that's going to pull you out of bed each day. And
Yeah.
I think if you can't find that in your own mind, you have to look outside. If you're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
at the point to where you can change your thoughts in your head, sometimes you have to get that outside, from outside sources,
I
from
agree.
going and listening to music, from
Yeah.
going and having coffee with a friend. There's other ways of doing it. And then being out in the world and seeing the good and seeing the positive will help change your own mindset. At least it did for
So
me.
true.
Yeah.
So
I think
true.
that's huge. I really think that is kind of big. And this is a lot of things that we talk about is there's a lot of programs and a lot of structure. And we had another student in our class, which we'll be doing a YouTube video with her soon, Lindsay. And she's like, I'll be honest with you. She's like, never really meditated. She's like, I did the walks and stuff like that. She's like, but it was you guys inspiring me to create a vision board and to just go out and live my life. She had long COVID and gotten sick. She was a power lifter. She's 47 now. She's in incredible shape. But she's like, the biggest part for me is when I chose to get out and live life despite my symptoms. Joe and I talk about this all the time. We put them in a sack, we throw them over our shoulders, and we go on through life with them. Like Joe enjoys racing. He's going to go race when he's symptomatic. I coach basketball when I'm symptomatic.
Yeah.
And what we find is when we begin to enjoy life, like that constant, you're dying, you're going to die, you need to commiserate your illness. Like you can't do this. Go lay on your couch. That begins to shift when we get out and we do things that we love. And then we start having these glimmers of moments that life seems beautiful again, that we're doing these things. And I think for a
Yeah.
lot of people that's healing. And I'm super grateful that we've had you in our class because you've been a spark of motivation to a lot of people. You've traveled to meet, people that have been in the class. People always say, Sarah's so inspirational. I can't believe you have this like iron determination about you. Like, I'm going to choose
Yeah.
life. And like, when you and I knew each other prior to any of the neuroplasticity and nervous system work, like, I was very sick, you were very sick, like, and I think just from seeing your posts and my posts, like, we were kind of stuck in that. Like, the idea of living any sort of life just seemed bleak. And, for you on the opposite end, like, there was many days where I'd just be like, all right, God, I'm done. Just take me home. Like, I'm done suffering. So much so that I got to a point where I didn't want to live anymore because it gets you to that
Yeah.
point where the illness can become so overwhelming, but not just the illness, your thoughts become so invasive that it takes over your whole life and you become inundated with fear. So when we shift that needle to, I'm going to get out and live regardless of X, Y, or Z, like you said, for you, you found archery, you started volunteering, you started doing these things. And it doesn't mean that you're not symptomatic when you do them, but you have these moments of, man, I feel all right, or I'm creating memories. And this comes back to you. If you guys have watched any of our stuff, I quote this all the time: get busy living or get busy dying. Like Joe said, you could do the top down, bottom down, this tool, that tool. But if you could bottle up a
Exactly.
cure, and not even a cure, but the thing that is going to help you feel the best, go out and live your life. Do not be fearful of
Yeah.
your symptoms. Learn to accept them and surrender to them and befriend them and do whatever it is that you want to do with them by your side. And what you'll notice is
Yeah.
as you begin to calm down your nervous system, life begins to look beautiful. Like, I got to meet Sarah for the first time in person after knowing her. I think it's been longer than 16 years. I really do, which is kind of
Let's
scary.
just say 16 because it makes us feel older if we say
It
the
really
actual
does. It really
number.
does. And I got to see her. I was coaching a basketball game, and she came
Mm.
into the gym. She was in a wheelchair, and like even now, like, you look more vibrant and full of life than if when I saw you years ago. Like, you look like you have vitality inside of you, like you're actually
Yeah.
living. And I know that there's some days it still might be difficult, but just what does life look like for you now? You know, are you having joy? Are you experiencing joy?
Yeah.
Absolutely. On a daily basis, I typically get up and go somewhere. I mean, it's so funny when you start doing stuff and living, you get to the point to where you're like, when you find that joy, you're like, oh, dopamine. So I
Yeah.
get up and yeah, I get out and do stuff pretty much every day. And then when I have a day that I don't do something, it's odd feeling. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's because you get dopamine from doing things that truly bring you joy. And, I love that. I love that I'm
Yeah.
capable of getting up and doing things. And I'm so grateful.
Mhm.
Right.
The first thing I do every day is gratitude. Are
Yeah.
there days that I don't want to get up? Absolutely.
Yeah. We
And do I have days that I stay at home and rest and relax? Yeah. Because your body needs that. I
yeah.
mean, a lot of us still have health things
Yeah.
that aren't great. And I don't think we have to hide that and be like, oh, we're magically cured
Yeah.
because that's not real.
It's about being real with ourselves as we're on the healing journey, and understanding that, there are things that are within us that are not optimal and ideal, like, inflammation, different illnesses and stuff like that, but choosing to rise above them versus staying down in there. And I think you've been a great example in the class of someone who chose to rise up above and to do your best as you're healing. And I wanted to touch on this because I know your journey has been up and down. Like,
Right.
we've seen you. You've been part of our
Still
class,
today, yeah.
for 2.5 years, and
Right.
there have been, we've seen you out living, enjoying life, and then we've seen the lows at times. And this is, so when me and Josh, created the boot camp and created the Healing Dudes, it was like, we're here to provide the truth about healing, because not a lot of people out there in like the brain retraining world and all this nervous system world, it's just like, oh, I healed in 6 months and or a year and it was just whatever. It's like, no, healing is hard. And so I don't know if you want to touch on that, Sarah, like over the last 2 years, like, well, first, I know when you came in, you said, you were in a dip, and then you
Hmm.
experienced levels of improvement. I don't know if that's symptom wise. I know your
Yeah.
mood and your mindset were better, but I know, if you can just touch on like the ups and downs of the journey, and like maybe, how you navigated those, and
Well, it's just life. And
yeah,
health is not a destination.
yeah,
We're always going to be
I love that.
healing, or we should be.
yeah,
And I think for so long, it was like, well, when I get better. And I know a lot of people say, well, when I get healthy. And it's like, if you're in that mentality, you're never going to get there because
yeah,
Yeah, you're
it's
gonna stay
not
stuck.
a place, it's a journey, it's a day by day. And even in that journey, there's ups and downs. And like you
hmm,
said, in the time that I've been in the boot camp, I've been in the hospital twice. I've had a surgery. I had a stroke like episode. I had a massive car wreck. I mean, and that's just part of life. That happens to quote unquote healthy people
yeah,
too. And it's just, that's where you have to have the mentality that I'm not a victim, I'm a
mm,
warrior.
hell yeah,
It's like,
Love that.
okay, this is what I have, but am I going to let it overcome me or am I going to fight against it?
yeah,
And you don't, it's not always that fighting mentality because sometimes you're on the top and it's great and you're like, oh, this is easy. But if you
yeah,
get in the mindset that you know it's going to be a wave and
yeah,
you can learn how to float on the wave and be like, up here's great, but I know that when I go down, it's going to go back up again,
yeah,
and it makes it okay. It may not make it easier. That may be crap because sometimes the lows are low,
yeah,
Yeah, they
but just
are.
having that knowing and remembering how far and how much you have overcome,
yeah,
for me personally, that gives me motivation to know that I
That's
can get back up the next hill.
hmm,
absolutely. I think, and this is a good point to kind of close in on. This is what I want to like really drive home. Is I think a lot of people paint these pictures of being healed as this beautiful thing, that it's just like I'm completely healed. I am symptom free. I live this glamorous life, and we see social media and there's mountains in the background and there's just all these things, and we know that that's not true, guys. And we hope that for people listening, the we're not so focused on the destination that we're not enjoying the ride. And for Sarah's story, for my story, for Joe's story, we realize that
yeah,
life is supposed to be beautiful in between, and it gets ugly, and there are car wrecks, there are accidents, there are surgeries, there are illnesses, there's things that pop up, and that a lot of people can get caught up in listening to testimonials and stuff that are fake and that are phony, and it only shares the good because that's what makes us feel good, that's what makes people go sign up. But the fact of the matter is, it's a grueling journey, it's difficult. But I think what's beautiful and what Sarah's shared is there's moments that turn into long periods of just life being beautiful amidst the struggle. And it does come down. I
Yeah.
believe that healing is a long journey. It's not a short journey. And it comes down to learning to ride those waves. Like once, I use this analogy often and I share it with Joe all the time. I'm like, man, I was going down the rapids and that was my healing journey. And I'm trying to grasp onto every single rock, fighting the current the whole way. Like, no, I don't
Yeah.
want this to happen. I don't want it, like all this stuff going on. And when I let go and I surrendered and I realized, hey, look, the journey is going to be rocky. There's going to be periods where it's smooth and I can look up and
Yeah.
look at the mountains and enjoy the water. And there's other times where it's going to be like real right. But the more that I try to hold on, the more that I try to resist, the more that I try to fight, the more difficult it becomes. So I would urge you guys out there. And Sarah has a beautiful story. Like, and one thing I want to ask you before we close is she gets in and out of her car with her wheelchair. She does everything herself. Like she has this iron will, but I know that there's been a shift in her because she decided to choose life, to get out of bed, to do these things. And I think that that's the most beautiful part of this is we talk about all these exercises and all these things, but literally it comes down to choosing to live your life, to heal, to make your own life beautiful, and to realize like no one's coming to save you. Like Joe and I offer guidance. We
Yeah.
offer the ability to give a community where there's support, but no one is ever going to pull you off the couch. And for Sarah to get into, I can't even imagine. I was in a wheelchair for a couple years, but to be in there every single day, picking it up, putting it in your car, like I can't imagine that. But having that, knowing that you're going to wake up to that every day and still choosing to make your life beautiful, Sarah, I don't think you realize because it's your life, just how inspirational that is to people that are out there struggling. Like I know when you were at the bottom, I could see in your pictures just how much struggle was in you. And now, like when I saw you, like you're
Yeah.
sitting over in the corner of the gym smiling, like to be able to go through everything that you've gone through and to still choose life and to still choose to fight. And I will use the term fight to make your life beautiful is one of the most incredible testaments to human spirit ever. And for the people that want to heal, don't look for the people that have their makeup done and their hair's flowing in the wind and they're telling you how beautiful and perfect life is. That's a lie. They never went through hell. They never went through hell. They were never really sick to the extent where it makes you not want to live anymore. Like I say that with absolute confidence. So for the people that are there, that
Yeah.
might be sin, that might be on their last thread, I used to say hanging on by the fingernail of a fingernail, like literally just ready to let go at any time, not having that strength, and just realizing, all
Yeah.
right, it was when I decided just I'm gonna grab and I'm gonna go up. I'm not grabbing anybody's hand. It's me. It's my strength. It's my resolve, and realizing that it's going to be a slow process and there's going to be down days, but I am going to choose to find beauty in life, and I think that you've done that, and your story is a huge testament to that. So the last question I'll
Yeah.
ask you is I do want to know, like, how do you get in and out of the car? How do you do, like, I was wondering when, like, you came to see me at my basketball game, how do you do that? Like,
Yeah.
So
And
my wheelchair actually breaks down into pieces. So the back folds down, the wheels pop off.
but
So
you break it down, you get it in
people
the
who
car.
see my people who see my car when it's parked, they're like, "Why are her seats always laid completely back?" I lay the seat back, pull it across me, and then put it in the passenger seat.
oh
So
wow.
Dude,
it
like
works.
Joe,
It's
could
an
you
easy
imagine?
move.
Yeah.
That's
Look,
incredible.
it's a pain. I even hate it. If I go Christmas shopping and plan to go 4 places in one day, it's exhausting. But do I
Yeah.
do it? Yeah,
And you do it
because
alone,
it's
right? Like
what I
you do it by
it's something
yourself. No
I
one's
know.
helping you do this stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes if I go somewhere with someone else, they'll help me, but most of the time it's just me. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you real quick too, Sarah. Just in terms of it's hard to judge because as we talk about on this journey, healing is not linear. It's up, it's down, and we're always healing. But I know,
Right.
like when you came into class, you were struggling, and prior to that, I don't think we got through all of your journey of all that. But like, are you more like, are your symptoms less? Are you just feeling better overall? Do you
Right.
feel um, more optimistic, happy? Like I don't know if you could
I
lend
think
any.
a lot of it for me is a mind shift.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
yes, I do still deal with physical pain every
Okay.
single day, but I think my stomach has greatly improved. I no
Yeah.
longer have a feeding tube. I no
Yeah.
longer throw up what I eat.
Mhm.
And that's huge. I
Yeah.
mean,
Amazing.
that's huge. I went from almost dying from not being able to eat to being
Yeah.
able to eat.
Yeah.
So that's massive for me. And just being able to put nutrition into my gut helps your entire body.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
sleeping now, and where I literally used to stay awake forever. They put me in the hospital and they were shocked at how long I didn't sleep. So I'm
Wow.
sleepy now, and it's just those core things, being able to sleep and eat,
Yeah,
it
that's huge.
changes everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, doing yoga and stuff has helped my strength,
Yeah.
my flexibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's huge changes. And I think the reason I look down on my own journey is because I'm like, well, I am still in a wheelchair. I do still have X, Y, and Z. And I know people look at me and see this story and be like, well, she's not cured. She's not healthy. Fair enough. That's your assumption. But from where I used to be,
Mhm.
dying in a bed,
yeah,
this is like living a dream.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
Are
that's how
you
you have to
are you
look
happy
at
now,
it.
Yeah.
Sarah? Do you have joy?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, do I still have down days? Yeah, but overall, is it more of a happy and more positive mindset? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
that's the
mean, I have,
contrast.
and it's also something that you have to do is you have to build a tribe of people that are positively benefiting your life. Get rid
Absolutely.
of negativity, cut
Yeah.
those cords, and finding people in the group that are healing and wanting to heal and not be negative and not dread on the past. That's huge. That
Yeah.
makes a huge difference to have that kind of friend
Yeah.
to help propel you and
Yeah.
always be there to push you. That's huge.
So the
And
community
it's
was a big
like
part of your
finding
journey.
even that's a form of dopamine.
Yeah.
It was funny in the group. There was three of us. We would Zoom call each morning and do yoga, and then have like a 10-minute chat. And some of
Wow.
us started living life more and going out, and we got to where we didn't do that. And even on Saturdays, we wouldn't do it on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And when I was getting used to talking to people, because I live alone, other than my mom, I don't really
Yeah.
have anyone. And having people to talk to every day, it was kind of like, oh, I kind of like this. I kind of like having people in my life. And then on
Mhm.
Saturday, when I didn't get that dopamine hit of having interaction, it was like, oh, I think I like people now. I don't know how I feel about that. So you also have to be secure in yourself. You really have to work on your own
Yeah.
positivity, because if you're in a
Absolutely.
place where you constantly need that dopamine from other people, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
You
Agreed.
really have to be able to find that and give that to yourself, whether it's through meditation and healing your own inner wounds, or going out and getting it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
rely on other people to give that to you, because they're not going to help heal you. Like you said, they're not going to save you. You have to
Yeah.
do it on your own. So,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Sarah.
Thank you for sharing,
Yeah,
Sarah.
thank you.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you guys. I
This
mean, we've
is
all been in it together.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've walked
I,
through, like I said, you're one of the OGs. And guys, in closing, like I can't stress this enough. Like, if we're relying, and there's a lot of stories out there that'll make you feel good. And I think that one of the benefits of talking to Sarah is Sarah's real about it. Like she lets you know she still struggles with X, Y, or Z. But you should really be wary when you're constantly listening to people like, I'm 100% better and I'm doing backflips in the mountains. Or that's not what healing looks like, guys. It's a very rocky journey. But what we want to highlight is that it does get better, that things do work out, that you can have happiness, that you can feel good. And that's not to say that it can't drop off next week, but it's how we respond when those drop offs happen that define our healing journey. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing your story, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah. And if you guys are interested in joining the boot camp, please comment below, hit us up. We're always active on our socials, or check out our website, guys.
Yeah, the link to our website
We're
and all our
the
socials will
the
be in
reason
the
in the description. The reason why we care so much about healing, we want to see people people get better. People that feel like they've lost hope, like they can't get better. We've seen it a lot in our class, and just people in general getting better from the whether they're in our class or not, overcoming obstacles, getting better, finding joy in life, finding happiness, getting out there and living, when at times they didn't think they could even make it another day. And that's the thing, is like the power of the human spirit. And I think, Sarah really illustrates that in her journey.
Absolutely.
So we really appreciate
And
you
thank you
sharing,
guys.
Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for everything,
And we
Sarah.
know that yeah, Sarah's probably going to end up having her own sort of inspirational story here, at some point writing a book or whatever. But,
Working on a book, but very, very slowly.
are
So
you? Oh, cool. Good to know. Cool. Cool. Well, thanks
Awesome.
for joining, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.